Hey everyone, today I'm going to be going over Gmail, the API endpoint security for my Gmail Pubsub uh, implementation in Axiom Workspace. So let's get right into it. So here we have the route here. First of all, we had to set up in Google Cloud our configuration, like our endpoint that Google can send notifications to when a user's email inbox is updated with an email, for example. So you have to specify that, and then it will send notifications to this method. So first, what it does, it checks in the body of the notification if there is a field called subscription, and that field is supposed to be the same as our Google subscription name, as every Pubsub that you configure in Google Cloud has a specific Google subscription name. So if only people who are able to have access to the subscription name would be able to get past this check. All right, so a Google Cloud Pubsub is a messaging service that enables applications to exchange messages and events. So as we see here in the diagram, there's a publisher, and a publisher um, is like an application or service that sends messages to Pubsub. All right, so this, for example, could be like the Gmail service. Gmail publishes a new message or a new email message to the Pubsub. Then we have a topic. It's like a named channel or category for messages. And it acts as like a logical endpoint where publishers send messages to. So it acts kind of like a message queue or channel. They can have multiple publishers. So multiple publishers can publish publish messages to a topic, and messages are stored temporarily. There's like a retention period that is configurable, and then also messages are delivered to all the subscriptions that they're meant for, and it receives and stores messages to topic, and then it will forward them to the different subscriptions. Okay, now a subscription is a named endpoint that represents a delivery configuration for a topic. It defines how messages from a topic should be delivered to subscribers. And each subscription is tied to one topic, and a topic can have multiple subscriptions, and a topic can have different delivery policies, whether it's push or pull. And so push is whenever it gets a message, it will it will push that on, or it will pass that on to like the different subscribers. And then the pull is when it will store a message, and then it will store it for the subscriber to then call it and then pull the data. So it's not like automatic. And topics can also have filters to route to specific messages. And then finally, a subscriber is like in an application or service that receives messages and processes messages from a subscription. So we talked about that how the subscriber will either pull, like fetch messages when it's ready to, or it will push. It will do like a push where the PubSub will actually deliver messages to the subscriber endpoint, and the subscriber just has to like have that configured to where it will just automatically like what we have in Axiom Workspace active like automatically like authenticate, make sure that it's valid, and then parse it and put it in the database. Next, we must check that there is a header called authorization that has a value with a bearer and an authentication token. So we check that it starts with bearer and that we get the rest of the string, and that should be the authentication token. All right. So basically, this authentication token is the same as whenever you're trying to make a request to Gmail API, for example, you have to authenticate yourself, and this token, authentication token, is what you get after you go through the authentication with Gmail. All right. So we must make sure that we have this authentication token. And now we verify the authentication token that it's a valid JSON web signature. We must make sure that it's not expired and it must be signed. So this right here, when verifying a signed JWT, the method checks the signature against the public key of the issuer, Google, as the signature is only created using the private key of Google. So this is something I didn't like fully explain. And this method involves fetching Google's public keys, this one right here. And once the token is verified, the method returns the signed payload. This one, it returns a signed payload which contains the deserialized payload data in the format which I specified, which is the payload, the Pubsub payload object here. If you look here, what they call an email verified. So it must be in this format, the payload. So these are the two parts that we parse from the payload. All right. And let me just make sure that they're not empty. And then email verified, this is just like a value that we must check that is verified. Okay. Now, given this email, we must also check that this email is the same as the Google service account. All right. So this email is not like some user's email, but rather this email is specific to our Google Pubsub account. Now that we were able to verify that this notification that we got is authentic, that it could only be coming from Google, then we can use the data that it was passed, that it was given to us in the body. Okay, so we have here, we're converting the body from base 24 string to message bytes, and then we get it in UTF-8 encoding string to then be able to use the message. So that's just this part right here. So now Gmail notification. From there, we're able to convert the JSON message into an object that we can use. So here is the basically the body. It will be consisting of an email of who the message or the notification is for, and then a history ID, which basically our application will use this history ID to keep track of basically the history of the user. So for example, let's say when we first created the subscription for the user to their email, let's say the history ID is 1, okay? And then a few days later, the person uses their Google, Gmail, and sends some emails, and then all of a sudden, we get some new notifications to our method, our endpoint, and the history ID would be like 2, right? So then what we do with this history ID, we're going to use it, and we're going to call the Gmail API and be like, here's the address and here's the history ID. Using this history ID, we can get all of the previous emails from the last history ID. That's how it works. So like for this period of time, give me all of the newest emails. We don't want all of them. So this is just the way it works with Google. So now, then from there, you can go on to syncing, like getting the account synced. So like whatever changes were made in the person's Google or Gmail account, now we can begin to synchronize that and sync that with our application.